Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Nice to see you all, kind of. We are coming at you live from the middle of a field in our, soon-to-be production vehicle that we are currently renovating. And we'll show you that soon enough. Not this time, but next time. I'm Charles Beale.
I'm Jess, Jacklin.
We are here to chat a little bit about sort of what we've learned through Demystified and distribution. Just before we get started, if you've got questions, make sure that you're typing them out right now, putting them in the comments. That way, when we get to sort of the question answer section, we'll have a little backlog and be able to address them. So a little bit first, some backstory. We are StudioFest. We're the co-founders of StudioFest. And StudioFest is a first of its kind film festival studio talent pipeline that seeks to get or move filmmakers, writers, and directors who have not yet had their debut feature film made and produced, and we finance and produce that debut feature film for them.
Yep, and just a little bit about why we started StudioFest. So Charles and I are filmmakers ourselves. We were going around to the festival circuit and talking to a lot of other filmmakers, a lot of them with short films, and everyone is really looking for the same thing, which is to get into the feature game. But that comes with a lot of problems because, first is financing. Maybe it's a couple $1,000s, maybe $10,000 to get your first short film made. Getting into the feature game, you're talking, tens of thousands of dollars in financing, sometimes $100,000 of financing. And so we decided that there was a need for something like StudioFest to really help filmmakers get to that next stage, to sort of fill that gap between short form and feature. And so we designed our festival to sort of help in that process. And like Charles was saying, help with the producing and the financing, but also help with the distribution side of that equation too. And that's something that, we'll talk a little bit about. We want to see it really through, the beginning to the very end, out into the world. So,
yeah. So just again, before we get into it, make sure you're typing out your questions in the comments. We'll see them. We'll be able to address them. Sorry, looks like, okay. You'll notice we have a couple of video difficulties here occasionally, so just bear with us when that happens. Oh.
Am I totally frozen?
Let's see. Hold this.
Mm-hmm.
Just bear with us. First time.
Frozen, but I can hear you, she says.
Are you live again?
Looks live. Yep. I think we're back.
So that might happen through this process. This is our first time. And we'll just, as we continue to do these, we'll continue to get better and probably next time set up a different camera setup. Right now we've got an iPhone and a couple of ring lights and our couch. So, we'll keep honing. Let's see. So really, just want to give you a little backstory before we get into distribution. Souvenirs is the first film to come out of the StudioFest system, and we made that with the winners Anna Makami and Matthew Sorvillo. Anna, the director, Matthew as the writer. We made that for about $80,000, and with all the in-kind production services that StudioFest was able to wrangle, we were able to get something close to a $200,000 value in-kind budget production and souvenirs. So before we get into it, we actually want to share with you a clip from Souvenirs. And here we go.
This one? Chewing on one of the smaller guy's tails. They came clean off.
I mean, the details.
Hey, Gail.
Hi, Bryce.
Hey, Jacob, do you have anything in a bigger bag?
Look in the back.
Thanks. What do we have here? Looking for a new pet?
It's for my grandma.
Yeah, nice or cute, I guess.
To eat.
What?
She has a snake. My grandma has a snake.
Your grandma has a snake.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see darkness runs in the family. About my cousin. I know Tori can be a bit much. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
How about I make it up to you? What do you say, movie and some ice cream?
No.
Just a movie then.
Sorry. Your voice, we don't have anything either.
Gotcha. Thanks for checking.
I have to go back to my grandma.
Hey,
I'm sorry.
Jacob, how late are you open tonight?
We close at 9.
That's perfect. Well, time to spare. Come with me to a movie. We can skip the ice.
I really can't tonight. I'm sorry.
Okay. I see you. We'll rain check it. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Royce.
Catch you later, Gail.
$3. So, what do you think you're going to be doing with the store?
What do you mean?
You know, if you go off to college, if your grandma happens to pass away. I mean, I just figured if she's gone, you might want to do something different.
I don't know. I've never really thought about it.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, have a nice day.
Okay, you too.
Oh, what are you waiting for? Really, Gail? Sometimes I can't believe you.
I'm sorry.
You would have had Lilith starve. She has a right to eat, you know? Snakes are friends to women. Since all the way back in the garden, Adam would have kept us barefoot and pregnant and too ignorant to complain. It was the kindly old serpent who saved us from that fate.
Hello, welcome back, and hope you enjoyed that clip. Creepy, huh? So
yeah, we'll just tell you a little bit about Demystified. So Demystified really picks up with the sale of souvenirs. If you've been watching it, you might know all of this, but if you haven't been, please check it out. Right now there's 4 episodes. The first 3 are heavy into distribution. And the 4th episode is really a conversation with our lawyer where we're getting into a lot of the nitty-gritty contract stuff. But what you'll see if you watch it is that we pick up with the sale of souvenirs. So we had the final asset. We went around to AFM, really. We had never been, and you'll see when you watch it that we're clearly novices. We've never done this before. So we're kind of just knocking on doors and trying to meet with whoever will entertain a conversation with us to see if we can sell the film. That experience, as our first time being there, was full of highs and lows. It was emotionally a little bit difficult to feel like maybe we'll never have a shot at this, but we did actually end up landing a sale on the film, and you can get a little bit of that, and I think it's about episode 3, where we're sort of locking into the details of the sale.
Yeah, so just like a status update on Souvenirs, we are actually, it is now currently available to watch it in the UK, so look on Amazon for that, and then it will soon be available everywhere else, and then we are actually doing our US premiere at Dances with Films, so which is totally digital this year. So if you want to get a early glimpse at Souvenirs and watch it, I'm going to bring up, this is the link to go to down here in the corner to get tickets to Dances with Films, and both screenings, which are on,
I think it's September 4th and September 5th, we'll be showing, which is a Friday and a Saturday. I think it's like $11 a ticket. They're a little bit discounted.
Yeah, there's an early bird ticket right now.
Yeah.
And Matt and Anna will be doing Q&As afterward. So definitely worth tuning into. And let's see, I'm going to leave that link up. And then, so that's where we're currently at. And, today, we wanted to go live really just to have a conversation. We want to talk and answer your questions about distribution. We know a lot of people have questions about that. But at the very least, we want to start what we hope to be an ongoing series where we can continue to have this back and forth and, be pretty casual about it. We want to be approachable and, here to share our information and knowledge with everything that we are discovering.
Yep. And if you have questions about distribution, we can't promise we can answer all of those questions. We can tell you about our experience. But we just want to have a dialogue. So if there's anything, if you're a filmmaker that's going through this process right now, maybe thinking about what this process will be like in the future, if you are someone interested in StudioFest, how it works, and just generally want to know about StudioFest, really just anything that you are wondering about, we're happy to answer.
Check that real quick. Okay, great. So, we're just looking at all of our streams here to make sure we're aggregating questions. The first one we've got is, given that you've done everything else, soup to nuts, did you ever consider self-distribution? Is that viable? And that's from
question.
Mo V Maker. That's from Movie Maker. So that's actually, it's funny because I think before we ever even got into distribution, that was something that, or even before we started pursuing, we knew that was a route a lot of people are taking these days. And, I think that's definitely been something that we want to do. We're keeping our ear to the ground on that. We're trying to learn everything that we can. From where we stand or what we've learned, I think it's like we're garnering really good information that's just going to equip us better when we do start doing that. There's parts of StudioFest that long term we've talked about wanting to become our own platform, streaming platform, in a way where, if we're making 1, 2, 3, and if we can get all finalists a movie every year, that's a plethora of content going out each year. Because that's really the critical element to being able to, if you're going to have your own streaming platform, which is where I think a lot of self-distribution tends to be looking, you need to have a library of content.
Yeah. Another really important part of the equation is thinking about domestic versus international distribution. So this distinction has become clear to me even in just the past week. So when you're dealing with international distribution, you're looking for a sales agent. That sales agent has relationships with buyers in foreign territories all around the world. Self-distributing in that way, I think is really challenging. So thinking about making relationships with buyers in all of those different territories, having a sales agent that has those relationships is something that is really beneficial to filmmakers when you're starting out if you have a film that's viable in foreign markets. Now, domestic distribution is something else. It's maybe easier to do as a first-time filmmaker if you have a film that is going to do really well domestically. Maybe your actors have an existing following. Maybe they're up-and-coming comedians if you're doing, like a rom-com. What you might find from a distributor or a sales agent for a film that's going to really do well just in the US, and Canada, is that they're just maybe going to put it up on streaming platforms, which you can just go do yourself, right?
But there are some parameters to that too, which we would flag, which is a lot of times to go onto those streaming platforms, such as Amazon and Apple, you actually need to be a part of a small package. I think Apple has a 3-movie requirement. So your company has to have had 3 movies put up in there. So I think like the first grouping, you need at least 3 movies to go up together in order to get them onto Apple. So that means that's all the more reason to become part of a collective, a filmmaking collective, or, like we're trying to do, we're trying to become a instant studio or an instant community. So what we're doing is lending our relationships and resources, and all the finalists and winners that we've worked with are our instant community. And so what we hopefully can provide is that collective that can help you. If that's a route to take, then you've suddenly got 2 other films that you can post up with. And cut out any middlemen that you would otherwise have. That's what I think we're learning also through the self-distribution viability is when it comes to self-distribution internationally, it's really about the relationships with those territories. So having a sales agent or distributor that's going to those, they just have the relationship is what it is. And if you are to remove that and do what they're doing, you're doing exactly what they're doing. You just have that relationship now. So, I mean, in a world where the margins are ever shrinking, that's something everyone has to be aware of. Yeah, is like, what does self-distribution look like? That being said, we're a small company right now, and our intent, we say it in Demystified, is, do we want to do this? Yes. Do we want to do self-distribution? Eventually. Can we do it? We probably don't. Probably didn't have the relationships then. We're building the relationships, but ultimately we've got so much on our plates right now. We need team members that can do that on our behalf as well. So we're very happy to have our partners right now with Glasshouse in this process.
Yeah. One thing we've talked about too is we're really interested in exploring self-distribution and talking with filmmakers that are doing it and they're having success with it. And so one thing that we'd love to start featuring a little bit more and people we're looking to speak with more are people that are doing that and having success with it. So I would just say stay tuned because hopefully we can talk a little bit more about that because it's something we're exploring.
All right. Hang on. Looks like video dropped out again.
Oh, yeah.
Just give me one moment. Pretty sure the iPhone is overheating.
Oh, is it?
Well, maybe not. I'm not totally sure what's going on. But one moment.
It's still, there we go, it's back.
There. Okay, as long as you can hear us, we'll continue to work and make sure that our camera setup is better and better. We are in a 35-foot motorhome, so, there's always like technological restrictions here as well. I think at some point, I trust we're going to blow a fuse. Probably not today, but when we start putting bigger and bigger equipment in here, which we'll show you and give you a tour next time. I'm sure we'll blow a fuse, so we'll have to figure that out. So that was a little bit about our perspective on self-distribution. I think it's inevitable we're going to do it, but we also know that some of the most viable forms of self-distribution, to summarize, some of the most viable forms of self-distribution, which is like streaming services, you have to have a library. You have to be a part of a library, which is just the importance of having a community, having a collective. And, we are a good option for people like, for instance, Matthew Servillo, who's out writing in Las Vegas with no relationships to any of the film scene. We were able to become an instant community for him. So that's why somebody might look into StudioFest. There are other great collectives out there, and it's important that you become a part of one and familiarize and know how to work with one, because it's just, we're stronger.
Even if it's just you finding two of your other filmmaking friends and you're all trying to get features off the ground and you're all helping each other get each other's features off the ground. And then, hopefully at the end of that journey, you have 3 films and then you are meeting those minimums. So, it doesn't have to be as organized, but, it is a community art form. It takes a lot of people. So, I think that's something that we think a lot about, is the community element. And what we did just find out cool with Matt is that he wrote a short film that now a director from Ojai. So he was a part of the first year in Phoenicia. He came to the Ojai Film Festival because we were premiering Souvenirs, which he wrote. And then he met another director from the second class of StudioFest who's now directing a short film that he wrote. And so we just love those stories. We love that people are meeting and then working together that would have never met each other otherwise. And they're really like, it was just really cool to hear. So that's the kind of stuff that we're hoping to foster. When you come, even if you don't win, you're still meeting somebody that you really hit it off with. You're making kind of the same stuff, and you can get together and make a short. And
right,
yeah,
and to tout a little bit more of the relationships that happen at StudioFest. We have, we're still young as far as festival goes, but we know of some budding relationships that are happening not only between our finalists and our winners, but also our finalists and judges as well. So that's really exciting to hear, because that's almost, there's a lot of support that comes instantly when you're working, especially with our judges. Okay, so Fred RM, what is some of the feedback or advice you received that was beneficial to self-distribute or operate as a self-studio? So we just spoke with somebody recently about budgets regarding operating as a studio and
minimizing risk, really.
Yeah, so like one of the intentions behind StudioFest, not only to be instant community for filmmakers, but in order to be sustainable filmmakers, you have to have, if you're not self-financing, which is very hard to do unless you come from you have an existing pot of wealth that you can draw from, you need to be able to deliver for investors. And it's really painful to think about the business side of it. We don't want it to compromise the art, but I've been saying recently, you're making compromises no matter what. If you know more about the business side of it, you can at least choose where those compromises are made. So when it comes to the business side of it, and delivering for investors, what we've done with StudioFest is try to minimize the risk. So what we're doing is being a collective, being able to leverage the StudioFest brand for in-kind resources means that the financial commitment is much lower in respect to the quality that we're getting out of this. So being able to make an $80,000 cash movie and get a $200,000 to $250,000 in-kind budget means that their dollar, an investor's dollar, is going 2-3 times as far.
And just to be really clear on what Charles means when he says cash versus in-kind. So cash is cash, and in-kind are things like partnerships that we're forging with an edit house, with a mix facility that will do the sound mix, with a great color correct artist, with a prosthetic artist, with whatever the film requires. Because there is an advertising mechanism, because there's a place for that business to live in the festival, on the Step and Repeat, or as a part of Demystified the series, there's a way to leverage those things so that we can bring more production value than the cash budget would allude to.
Yeah.
And so that's our goal, is that the quality of the film meets a certain bar that makes it viable in a marketplace, even though the actual, cash budget of the film might be a little bit lower, and we're definitely working in the micro budget category. We can, sort of pad an investor's risk and also a new filmmaker's risk, because ideally the first thing that you make as a feature is something that does well, artistically it satisfies what you were going for, and also it does well, it sells, so that you can make your next film. And so that's sort of the big picture that we're putting.
And anyone that has,
through.
you're going to have in kind no matter what, really, especially if you're working with micro budgets, because you're inevitably going to be calling in favors. So you need to value those favors. So if somebody, like we say, Michelle says in Demystified, if you got a superstore or a shopping center location for free because your dad works there, you need to value that. That's how many dollars a day would that charge cost you anyway? And you can ask them too. They'd come up with a number and they'd say, well, generally, if somebody were to, use our space for an hour or an event, it would cost this much. And you times that hour by how many hours you're in the space and put that into and use that to value your in-kind budget, because that's the quality that you're creating, even if the cash that you're spending is less. And so it's important. And that's ultimately, I think, when it comes to negotiating with distributors, that's the number you want to be talking about, is the in-kind value. Giving away your cash budget, we've been very transparent on that, but giving away your cash budget might give a distributor that you're working with an opportunity to say, well, they're going to be happy just making their cash budget. And while you probably will be happy making your cash budget, you should be aiming for what is the value you put into that? And you need to be valuing your time as well as a creator. So Jess and I, these earlier films, we definitely, I think we, price ourselves differently, but in the future, when we're working on something, even if we're putting in our time, the time that we're putting in, what we bring to it, that's something that you should be valuing. Your producer, as the director, even if you're doing it for free, if you were paying yourself, what would you be paying yourself in the context of what your cash budget is, in the context of what the production budget is? That way, when you're thinking about recouping your money, you're not just earning your money back. It's not just a calling card. You can actually be paying yourself to be working, which is highly critical to be a sustainable filmmaker.
Mm-hmm. And if you're using your own money to make your first feature, you want to make sure that you see that money and can put it back into your next film.
Right.
Same with investors. If people are giving you money, friends and family, or other people interested in your project, you want to be able to give them that money back, and hopefully they'll get on board for the next thing you're going to make, because it's going to be really exciting to them to see this film have a life, go out in the world and do something. They get to come to the premiere. It's a great experience, and so you'll find that people will want to keep supporting you as an artist and as a filmmaker if you're bringing them back their money that they put into the first one. So.
There's even a really great psychological component to when it comes to getting investors on micro budget features, which is as long as you prep them and tell them there's a really high chance they're not going to get their money back. It's 10 years ago, it was 1 in 8 films made their money back. It's probably worse than that now. If you prep them and they know, I'm giving this money because I care about the project and I care about the filmmaker and hope that they succeed, they're probably writing off in their head, there's a chance I'm not going to get this money back. And so that means when you do give them their money back, because you're able to get a return, they're more likely to be like, you know what, keep it, put it into the next one, and let's keep building you. You're on a path, you're making money, you're becoming a sustainable filmmaker. So there's a great psychological component of people that have already separated from the money, really, and they believe in you. They're probably just going to say, make another one. So, think about that kind of stuff. You have to prep your investors properly, make them know of the risk. But in micro budgets, that risk is a little more affordable for some people. Let's see. We've got Tina asked, how long did it take to make Souvenirs?
Souvenirs was, we're working on this plan, but our initial goal was always to, award the filmmakers, write the script, produce the film, and have it ready to go in time for the next StudioFest. So Souvenirs was a true 1-year timeline. With everything going on with COVID and the pandemic, and obviously for the second one, the timelines changed a little bit, but we did do that very quickly. I think Matt wrote the first draft of the script in, how long was it?
He wrote the first draft in a month.
And then we were going, I think we spent 3 or 4 months total on the script. And to be honest, scripts can use more time than 3 or 4 months. That was extremely aggressive.
Yeah.
But we in this next year, we started the script phase like very quickly after the festival. We were already writing. We didn't wait for too long to get into the script like we did the first year. So I would stand by that you can do this process in a year. Is it going to feel rushed? Is it a little aggressive? Definitely, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
It was a from beginning, like StudioFest to StudioFest. I think it was almost on the same day the following year we awarded the film and it was out into the world.
Yeah, and I think to follow that up, we're taking advantage of this extra time right now to really hone the scripts. We're not only doing one movie this year. Actually, we're doing 2 movies now, and so our hope is for the next festival we'll definitely have at least one film premiering and hopefully a second one. We're looking to expand. We're actively trying to take advantage of some of these relationships that have come to us, and a big part of making movies and finding investors, and not just investors for movies, but investors for any sort of business, is this idea of FOMO. We've been listening to every kind of podcast, from startups and the startup podcast to like Indie Film Hustle and all the Movie Maker podcasts. And so the idea is that what we're thinking of is how do we present ourselves? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going? We're taking the opportunity to really hone and make sure that the quality is just getting better and better every year, using the resources we have at hand to accelerate and get better and get stronger when it comes to production. So, okay. So I feel like I was on a track somewhere.
It
but
into investors, how we're looking for investors.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, and we apologize if we start sweating a little bit. We're in the South and it's very hot right now.
Super hot.
We're not generally here, but we're here right now working on the motorhome, and we've turned off the AC unit to make sure.
So it might come back on.
All right. So Tim Malloy asks, how do you ask investors for money? How do you find them and approach them? So the first movie, it's the family first policy is, you go to the people that you have the strongest relationships with, that are going to believe in you and trust you, and want to see you succeed because they know who you are personally. That's going to be your first route. And so a big part of what StudioFest does, aside from the instant community, aside from on the side of the investors, the mitigating the risk is also showing that we have a track record. So while the first movie, I think generally everyone's going to try and do their first movie in, like, if they're doing it on their own, it's probably going to be like 10,000 to 100,000 if they're working in micro budgets. And you're going to find a way to scrape together that amount. And you might do a puffy chair where it's $1,000. But the point is, you need to at least show and have a working resume that you have, and show that you can finish a film, because that's the biggest risk. It's just really difficult to finish a film. So if you want to get more investors interested, you have to show that track record, and that's what we have now. So going into year 2, it was much easier to get investors. That's what I was talking about, FOMO. So the idea of FOMO, it's the fear of missing out. So if you can show investors, regardless of what you're selling, whether it's movies, shoes, whatever, you're saying, I'm a train, I'm moving. You want to get on this train. It's going somewhere. You don't want to miss out. So this, when you have that track record, when people are watching your films, they're saying, wow, this person's going somewhere. if I the it's the highest risk to invest early, but it's also the biggest reward. And when you're working in art, that's what people expect. They expect high risk, high reward, at least compelling and interesting stories. You should be telling compelling and interesting stories and honing your craft. Make sure you're taking your best shot, giving your best shot. But when you've got, when you have a track record, which we have now, you will have people interested in what the next steps are, asking what's the next project, because they're thinking, how do I get a part of this person's career? And when we're, our system that we have, we actually had some investors approach us. We've had investors approach us regarding the studio itself, investing in the studio itself, because ultimately that is the lowest risk version of making movies. But yeah, it's all about the track record. Make your first movie, if you can, try and scrape together some family money, try and scrape together some friends, maybe do a Kickstarter get you into that $10,000 plus mark.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is that WeFunder is an interesting platform that we've been looking at a lot. So WeFunder, the laws have changed, and now there's not really a lot of restrictions on who can invest. And so that allowed people to invest in movies. And so what's different there from a Kickstarter is on a Kickstarter, you're getting a t-shirt and it's more like a donation. With WeFunder, you're actually out there looking for investors, and you're on this platform with other startups. It's not just films, it's anything that's, can take investment. And so that's an interesting way to go that we've been looking into. We are now getting into what I feel like is the more, in terms of what will be useful to the audience, we are embarking on raising and financing money for the films that we have coming up in a way that we haven't quite done before, like having some of those conversations with investors, exploring platforms like WeFunder. And so what I would say in terms of investment is that there will be more to come from us, because we are actually actively in that stage right now. And so we want to be able to, just in how we did with distribution, we're kind of feeling our way through a lot of those investment questions too, because there's always more that you can be doing. There's always other people you can be talking to. There's always a different way to get someone to invest, meaning maybe the studio is the more exciting asset. Maybe if you're a filmmaker, think about, what if I get together with friends of mine and we form a studio and we use the credentialing of all of us to go out and find investors instead of it just being about this one film? And so there might be little things that, we're finding are working, or we can tell you actually it didn't really matter that we did this, so that hopefully can help you in your process of trying to raise funding as well. Yeah, so I would say that we don't have all the answers to that question. We're still exploring it, but we're starting to get a feel for where the opportunity is and how you can do these things in the most savvy way.
That's why I think actually the collective approach, or the StudioFest approach, is probably one of your best feet forward when it comes to getting financing. Investors are, like traditional investors, are all about risk mitigation. And so when they see that there is a platform, when they see that there is a strong foundation and a track record, that's something that is easier for them to get behind, easier for them to put money behind, unless your buy-in is just so low that it's like a laughable amount, which is great. You can do that. I think our first year we were, it was very affordable to get a percentage point in a movie. And, a lot of people just want that cachet in a way. So like, that's when you can make that barrier low enough, that bar low enough, to like start low and just keep building the value of every product that you make, every film that you make.
Right. And the other thing I would say is, don't be afraid of mentors. Don't be afraid of executive producers that you find interesting that have done films that you feel like are in like the genre that you're making. Sometimes having somebody affiliated with your project that's maybe more accomplished than you are could help those conversations, like it feels like it's adding a little bit more security if you're a first-time filmmaker and you haven't quite done this yet. Even if you don't have a casting director, getting an IMDb Pro account and looking at like some of these up and coming actors that are like ensemble players on shows that haven't done a feature yet, but maybe you can just send a nice email to their manager and say, look, I have this script. I have this executive producer backing me or this person credentialing me. And, having an exciting actor with a credential of I'm on this network show. I mean, maybe they're not a name talent, but they're still somebody with, a lot of a face that you would recognize, that can help a lot with investors too, because you're saying like, oh, and also I have blah, blah, blah that you saw in Handmaid's Tale and they're in my movie, and for an investor, it's like that sort of legitimizes the operation a little bit like, okay, they're working with real actors, like they have there's these little things that you can maybe do to team build in the right way so that you're more attractive to an investor, even if, all these people, your actor's getting maybe, a new media contract or a ultra low budget contract. So hopefully the fee isn't too high. And maybe that producer just says like, look, give me a few points on the back end of the film, and you can negotiate some things. So your budget doesn't have to go like through the roof and you can still keep it low, but do it in a way that it's easier to find the money.
Yeah. And you can also target people very well too. When, let's say, that you have some family members or let's say, in your community, that there are people that love a certain show. Maybe there's a character on there that, plays small bit parts. You might be able to get them aligned to a script, like Jess said, that is looking for a lead in something. And that you might be able to then target those investors or those people saying like, look, it's your chance to meet this person from this show as well. That's a big part of filmmaking that we're learning when it comes to investors, because there's so much risk in it. You have two different thought processes, because there's so much risk involved. On one side, it's how do I mitigate the risk? And on the other side, it's I just want the cachet. I just want to meet some people. And so there's, you really have to think outside the box. How do I make it look as interesting to the investors, the potential investors, as possible? And cast is a great way into that.
Were there any compromises?
Fred, were there any compromises you did in Souvenirs that you wouldn't do again, or was it necessary to get the project made? I think Souvenirs, we specifically set out a timeline for, and for that better health of StudioFest, we needed it to be ready for the festival next year. And that's we have the benefit of what's going on right now so that we can spend more time in the pre-production process. So that's just going to better quality film at the end of the day. The more time you put into something, of course, you don't want to sit in development forever, but at the very least, we can make sure that we can quality control to the best of our ability, and we're not up against a timeline the same way, or at least our timeline has afforded us a little bit more opportunity here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing I can think about with Souvenirs that felt like we could have used more time. I mean, we're super happy with the performances. The cinematography looks great. I mean, we feel like it's a great film. I mean, it did.
We're very proud of it, especially like first film out of the gate, and it's usually a feat to just get distribution with your first film.
Right, and so, but we definitely there were two. Like if I'm thinking about the timeline, it was like we definitely could have started the script earlier. I think we still could have done it in a year, but we should have really started our process for getting the script nailed down sooner than we did. We were kind of in ideation of what the movie would be for a longer time than we should have been. We could have moved into script phase, I think, sooner. That would have allowed us to have, you could always use more time in the script. And I would say that you can tell the script is a bit rushed. Like there were things that could have been further developed. And then on the editorial side, what we found works really nicely for the 1 year timeline. This is a big caveat. When we get to the 1 year timeline of StudioFest the following year, we're really using that screening as a feedback screening. So it's not a locked cut. Right. We're just putting a rough cut in front of an audience. And what's nice about that audience is that it's made up of like every kind of person, because we were in LA, but we had family coming from the middle of the country, from the East Coast, from the West Coast. We had, our grandparents, and we had our peers. And so it was kind of this nice test audience that shows up to the festival. So you can put it in front of industry professionals and your mom and dad, and just say, like, what did you think of the film? What were you responding to? And allows you to get really great feedback all in one session, so that you can then go back into the editing room, do all of those edits, and make it great, and then get it off to, that end of summer. So we're at the September mark. You're trying to get it into like the top festivals, and then working your way down the ladder of where you're trying to submit to. So, yeah, I would say that we did get a little more time on the editing that we needed, and we could have used more time on the script.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's definitely, that was the pressure of the StudioFest system at the time. Fortunately, now we're working on a backlog, so we can spend the time that we need to in the scripting phase. And yeah, we're very happy and proud with that. Just going to bring up another, and then let's see.
Cheers.
Hey guys, from Charles Wazy, how do you know it if you have a limited budget? The best, what we're learning is talent is becoming savvy to their own value. And you see this in Jessica Chastain, Margot Robbie, Reese Witherspoon. They're all creating their own production companies because they know that they can benefit more from their name by being stakeholders in the movies rather than just being paid off talent. So the best asset that you can present is make them shareholders, give them points on the movie, make them executive producers. Their names, they know they can benefit directly from. And so that's probably going to be your strongest asset with that. When you've got a little bit limited budget, you're still going to have to put out a offer. A lot of times, and your offer might have to say, sorry, there's no room for negotiation, or there's no room for financial negotiation, but we are open to credits. We are open to coming to your talent. For instance, one of the movies that we're prepping right now, we are small and lean enough that we are planning that we can go to the talent. And that, in a time of COVID, is so helpful to them because they know they can go home at the end of the day rather than having to stay quarantined in a hotel for a month, if you have a 2-week shoot and then 2 weeks leading up to that. Mm-hmm. So, make it easy on them.
Right.
Make it easy on them, make them shareholders, put their name all over it, make them executive producers, whatever they need for it, whatever, because Dakota Johnson also has her own production company. They're all, there's so many people that are just trying to start making the roles that they want to be playing and not wait on them anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say, we work with casting agents. We have wonderful casting agents that, come on, and they also come on with points in our films. And so we're able to negotiate, an affordable rate for the level of movie we're making. So if you can do something like that and get a casting agent on your team, casting agents are amazing. I mean, they know they have access to a wonderful, wonderful talent. They can help advise you on who they think's right for the role.
Right. They credential your production.
Yeah. They're wonderful. It's okay if you don't have one, though. If you don't have one, what I would say is spend the money on an IMDb Pro account. Just reach out to some managers. Think about talent in terms of potential, like going after the A-list talent when you don't have any money. That's hard, but think about people who haven't done what you're doing yet. Maybe they've never been in every scene of a film ever, and maybe they do, and yours is a comedy, and you think like you've seen them do this thing and you think they could have some comedy chops. Like, think about what you're offering them, and what's different and exciting, and then just try reaching out to their manager. And if you write a nice, heartfelt letter to them saying, this is who I am, this is what my project is about, this is my script.
This is why I'm thinking of this talent, you right. Specifically. You want to show them that, you have what they want in mm-hmm. this. And that's a lead role. That's, this kind of role. So really cater to them. Show them that this is what they want.
Yep, definitely. And then the other thing to think about is, something we're doing, like Charles was mentioning, we can go to the talent. So one way we're thinking of producing a film we have is, we have a lot of fun cameo roles in it. We have a lot of just a player in one isolated location. And one of those locations happens to be around a dining room table with a mother and a father and our two lead characters. And so one thing we're thinking of is, even tabling that section of the production after principal photography. We shoot principal photography and we save that one scene or these one or two scenes where once the film is shot
and the risk is gone,
and it's edited, and you could even show a sizzle cut to like an A-list actor or like an existing couple that live out in LA that are like, sure, you can pay us X amount of dollars, it's not going to be that much money, but if they say yes, maybe you can go get some money from your investor, so it's a little bit of a chicken and egg.
A distributor also knows that, you've already done everything. Right. Well, if you just need finishing funds, that's easy. That's not as easy. That's not as hard an ask if you've got pretty much everything else done and taken care of and the risk is gone. Right.
And so think about if there's ways that you can produce in a savvy way where maybe you could, a bigger name, but maybe they're just in the dinner scene playing the mother and the father and you only need them for a day. And, you can offer them a couple $1,000s or $10,000 just for that one day. But then you have them in your film and that can go a long way in terms of sales and distribution too. So, just something that we've been kind of, as we're brainstorming, like how to get people in our films that we've been thinking about.
Yeah. So we have a question from Jared Bratt. With my first feature streaming on Amazon Prime, I have a great pitch / team for the next one I'm trying to get going. Biggest battle is finding investors. How do you go about finding potential investors? Yes. So now you have a track record, which is great. So I'm going to assume that you've gone to festivals with it. One of the reasons why we made StudioFest is because what you need at festivals isn't necessarily always there if you're not at a big market festival. And so, you may have gone to festivals, garner whatever interest from those festivals that you had, get them in a mailing list and make sure that they're hearing about everything that you're doing as far as your productions. You enjoyed this film that I made. We're gearing up for the next one. Get them in, make sure that they're aware that you are looking for financing because you never know who they know too. And now you have a little bit of an audience there. When it comes to finding basically you're looking through any potential relationships, whether it's family, whether it's people you work with, or who you've met at festivals. Be thinking about how do you make it very approachable. So I think there's a lot of people willing to invest if price point is right. And you might have to use and negotiate that price point to ensure that you can at least get money. So you don't want your budget to be so high that you scare off investors, because in order for you to get and enter into production, you need $300,000. But let's say you only know people that are willing to invest, say, $1,000 for a point, that would value your movie at $100,000. So you have to think about what is the price point where I can get people to actually invest in as well. And so it's, you might have to sliding scale it a little bit, scale back your production, and think a little tighter on the process if you're struggling to get people behind a $3,000 per point investment.
Yeah. The other thing is I'm going to keep talking about talent because it's the thing that we're in right now. And it is so important before you're actually approaching investors. If you can take that step with your script, you've got the script, try to get, it doesn't have to be, again, like an A-list actor attached. Get somebody that's exciting to an investor, somebody whose face they recognize, that's been on this show, that has a following. And you can look at people's followings, that they have an audience, right? You can use their audience. This is somebody you're now bringing onto your team. So say there's a comedian that's up and coming that's like hitting Variety's list of top 30 comedians, and you're doing a comedy and they've never done a feature. And so you hit them up and you're like, I'm doing this movie. You want to be in it? Like, you're great. You're funny. I love your work. They say, yeah, I want to do it. Well, now they have a following of 100,000 people that love their YouTube videos. And it's like an audience for you too, when you're raising financing for your film. So think about strategically who you're bringing on to your project, and if they can add value, both be right for the art, because you need to make sure that your film is what you want it to be, but also think about, what they can bring beyond just their performance, So we aren't really having conversations with investors until we kind of know some cast in our films, just because you could go to an investor and you won't be able to have a conversation with that investor twice. You're only going to have one conversation with them. You'd rather have the conversation with the exciting people on your team or the actor or actress attached.
Right.
You'd rather have the conversation then. And so it's also a timing thing.
Yep. And yeah, be thinking about, aside from character or aside from actors, be thinking about who is going to be interested in the story you're telling as well. When it comes to what we're learning is that, it used to be make something broad and a lot of people will buy it, but now people are benefiting from niches, smaller and smaller niches, because you get a more impassioned audience. And the same thing goes for the investors. You can probably get people aligned that just care seriously about the story you're telling as well. So there's a couple of ways to present it. Make sure you have a great pitch deck, a simple, easy to digest pitch deck that looks clean and looks professional. That's just going to be your best foot forward. It's going to be like, and maybe we'll put out somewhere like what a good pitch deck looks like.
Yeah. We're always working through pitch decks. I mean, you have to have a really great succinct logline. You want to have a really great synopsis. You want to have a breakdown of your characters. You want to have films that are like your film, and you want to have, this is our filmmaking team.
Yeah.
Like, you need those things in the pitch packet. Just high level, this is what this is the tone and feel of it. These are the characters you're going to meet. Even just these are the kind of actors we're thinking of casting is another good thing. So, a script is a lot for somebody to get through, and somebody that's an investor, they're not going to read a 90-page script.
Right.
Maybe they'll read a 90-page script, but the pitch deck is going to be your best asset when you're talking to investors.
So, we are still feeling out and will continue to define the best way to approach investors as we close in on the investors that we are finding. But also consider looking at things like WeFunder, which have a range of how much of your film you are prepared to sell off and sell percentage points on. And people can buy fractions of percentages as well. So the buy-in can be, I think the minimum buy-in is like $105 for an investor, which is a great crowdsourcing aspect. But of course, there's all the risk. And take a look at other films on there. They've got great paperwork that, generally it would cost you a pretty penny with a lawyer to get paperwork like that. But, see who else is making stuff on there. If you invest in one of their films, I think you can gain access to, the legal paperwork, which you could eventually, repurpose for your own. Though that's not great legal advice. Make sure that you're covering your bases, but you might be able to get something boilerplate to work off of and to take a look at. So we're closing in on an hour. I think we're going to need to turn the AC back on here pretty soon. But I've enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, this is great. Is there anyone else on here? Just want to make sure we didn't miss anybody before we sign off. I think we're good.
We want to continue to do these regularly. So what we'll do is, make the event and make it show you next time we're going to be on. And we plan to do this between regular Demystified episodes. So, plan on still tuning in for Demystified. Jake is working away. Funny enough, we were actually ready to put out an episode and something happened where it probably wouldn't have been the best climate to put that out. So we went back into the lab and we'll have a fresh new episode for you here soon enough.
Yep. And if you aren't already, please subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can see it down there. Stay tuned. There's more to come. And we're going to think about also bringing some people on to be
Yeah, do
live
some
with
interviews.
us,
Yeah.
so we can. Yeah,
We're in a
that's our plan.
motorhome. Maybe we'll travel to them.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.